we thought it was a good day to have Ken Klukowski on. He's a constitutional attorney, Breitbart News legal columnist, and a fellow with the American Civil Rights Union. Ken, how are you?
Brian, it's great to be with you. Thank you.
You need a long business card. You got a lot of things on it. By the way, on faculty at Liberty University School of Law. Okay, so the Attorney General says, look, I think the drug laws are messed up. I think the war on drugs has not really worked. And maybe we need to be more lenient about the way that we go about enforcing the drug laws. I'm reminded of what he did with immigration law. He disagreed with immigration law. He and the president disagreed with immigration law, and they decided they weren't going to enforce the laws. Is this similar to that or different?
That's exactly what this is, Brian. It's what you just said. The war on drugs has failed. We need to change our drug laws. Well, the federal government has every prerogative to make that decision, but it's not his branch of government, it's Congress. Congress made these laws. Congress can change the laws. The president could say it, but only if it were proposing legislation to Congress. The Attorney General's job is to be the top law enforcement officer of the country. That is to take the laws that Congress has passed and then under the president's supervision to faithfully execute those laws which Congress has passed. And if Congress gets it wrong, then Congress is the one who needs to change it. It's not part of Eric Holder's job description, just as it was, as you said, in immigration, to say, I don't like these laws, I think they make bad public policy, so I will order my people not to enforce certain ones of them.
I find myself sort of in agreement with what the Attorney General is saying, but I have a problem with the way he's going about it because, laws are supposed to mean something in this country, and you don't just get to ignore the laws with which you disagree.
That's exactly right. And in fact, that's why we have written laws at a very basic level. This gets to everything from Second Amendment gun rights to First Amendment religious liberty and free speech to gay marriage and abortion. There's a reason we have a written Constitution. It's so that the people of this country knows what it says and what it does not, and it was given to us as a written document. We created it, I should say, as a written document, so that we could use it as a means to hold our elected officials accountable to adhere to it. All of our lesser laws, like federal statutes passed by Congress, work exactly the same way. We put them as words on people that are voted upon and then signed into law so that we all know what the law is and we can all be bound to faithfully adhere to it.
All right, so Ken Klukowski, I read your stuff at Breitbart because it makes me smarter. You're a constitutional attorney. I am not. So let me just do a quick list here. You've got the president utilizing the administration Homeland Security to basically ignore immigration laws. He did that last year before the election. You've got the president giving a waiver unilaterally to employers on the Affordable Care Act employer mandate. He just waived it, even though it's a law that Congress passed and voted on. And now you've got the Attorney General just waiving the sentencing guidelines for federal drug laws, even though it's something that the Congress passed. These are three major things that Congress should be able to stand up and say, hey, no, this is a constitutional crisis. You can't do that. My question to you, Ken Klukowski, is why doesn't Congress grow a pair?
Well, I have to tell you, it's a lot of people are wondering that around town here. I'm glad you used the other recent example of Obamacare, because in Obamacare, which is 2,700 pages long, there are several dozen provisions where the government officials, whether it's the Secretary of HHS or whoever, where the government official is authorized to modify things or suspend things or extend.
Yeah, but this employer mandate isn't. They can't
exactly
do what
right.
they did. They broke the law.
That is exactly right. The employer mandate is Section 1513 of the Act. It is mandatory language, and Congress imposes it not on the government. That is mainly imposed on every private business. It is directly between Congress and every private employer in this country. There is nothing in the statute authorizing any bureaucrat, to even the president himself, to step forward and say, you know what, this is causing me a political headache. In fact, it will lead to a disaster in the midterm elections for me. So I'm just going to go ahead and punt that.
So, Ken, the question is, what can Congress do and why aren't they doing it? Who should do it?
Congress has a massive array of tools at its disposal. It has the power of the purse. Not a single dollar can be spent on anything in this country at the federal level unless Congress appropriates it. Also, on the Senate side, not the House, but the Senate has the power to withhold confirmations. Of course, we're going to have that whole fight with recess appointments at the Supreme Court this fall. So, I mean, Congress has all the tools that it needs if it wants to express its will, to assert its rights, and really show itself to be a co-equal branch of government.
Listen, I'm just playing devil's advocate when I ask this question. If you were to ask the Attorney General or some who are on the other side of this issue, they say, look, this is about prosecutorial discretion. This is about, the prosecutor saying that, we know best and we get to choose which cases we're going to bring and which ones have merit and which ones do not. What would you say to that?
Well, I'd say that he's absolutely right that prosecutorial discretion is something every prosecutor has to exercise every day, because the reality is every prosecutor has evidence of more crimes being committed in their jurisdiction than they have the manpower and the hours to pursue in the day. So everyone has to make priorities. And you do make some broad internal policy determinations in order to put certain classes of crimes above another. And that's why this looks especially insidious, because prosecutorial discretion is legitimate. But that's exactly what happened with immigration, where he took a huge class of illegal immigrants and say, we're not going to engage in deportation proceedings against any of these people. Well, that, in essence, if you're the only policeman on the road who can issue speeding tickets, and if you say, I'm not going to issue any tickets for people who are going less than 30 over the speed limit, well, that means if you're the only guy who can write speeding tickets, everyone on that road knows they can go 25 over as much as they want, because in essence, you don't have the power as a policeman to change the speed limit. You don't make the law. But if you say you're not going to enforce it, then it's like it doesn't even exist. He did it in immigration, and by doing it with this, too, taking a whole class of low-level drug crimes, and where it's been a priority item of the far left to just get those off the books anyways, for him to say, I'm not going to enforce any of these, a huge class of crimes against a large number of people, that's where it, I think, crosses the line. Under trying to assert a legitimate excuse, that's where it crosses the line into effectively becoming a law unto yourself.
Well, great discussion, and thank you so much for bringing some light to this complicated story that everybody's talking about today. Ken Klukowski, always a pleasure.
Brian and Larry, thank